We continue in Sefer Ha-Aggadah, tales of the rabbis and their lives. This is on page 158 in Sefer Ha-Aggadah. It's a story that's already brought in the Talmud, several places, and it's about Hillel and Shammai. It's a famous couple, Hillel and Shammai. They were colleagues, but also opponents. They had many disagreements between them. Usually people view that Hillel was more lenient and Shammai was more strict, but it's not a clear division. As we said several times, that whatever we describe as being lenient on one hand could be viewed as a stringency on the other hand. So for example, if you tell people don't eat legumes on Pesach, you think you're strict, but you're actually being lenient by taking away the pleasure of enjoying the holiday with calm on Pesach. So that's one thing. There are other disputes between them which cannot be divided along the lines of strict and lenient, such as how many candles you light each day of Hanukkah. Hillel says you start with 1 and you go to 8, and Shammai says you start with 8 and you go down to 1. So there were those who wanted to say that Hillel is the one who always sees the potential, and Shammai is the one who sees what's already done. So in any case, we view ourselves and the Torah of today as stemming from Bet Hillel. Most of the halachot that we follow were determined by the student of Hillel and not the student of Shammai. And the rabbis in later generations asked the question, why did they have the merit that their opinion was accepted more than the opinion of Bet Shammai? And the answer was because they were more humble. They were not pushy, or they were willing to hear the opinion of the other side. That's really interesting. So it was not determined by majority. As a matter of fact, there's one case famous story between Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai that was determined allegedly by a majority, but we have two versions of the story. This is called the 18 Gezerot. There were 18 rules, mostly have to do with purity and impurity of the hands and how you conduct the meal. And the Mishnah says, אלו מ-18 דברים שגזרו בו ביום, שנמנו ורבו תלמידי בית הלל, תלמידי בית שמאי על תלמידי בית הלל. So they said there was a situation where those halachot were brought to vote. They voted on them, and there were more students of Bet Shammai than of Bet Hillel, and the majority ruled. Only 18 out of the whole complex of halachot that we have. So finally, you read this story. It's a beautiful democracy. They voted. There's due process. But this is the official version. This is sort of like the embellished version. The original story is found in the Talmud, what we call the Yerushalmi Talmud, and over there it says that it was more like a coup d'état. It was a political maneuver. That what happened was they all went into the Beit HaMidrash, as they usually did, and the people of Bet Shammai realized that they have a majority. So they sent message to the guards outside. They said, lock the doors, no one comes in, we're voting now. Yeah, and if it ended there, it would be good, but it became a violent conflict where the guards drew out swords and killed some people who tried to come in. So halakha is not a simple issue. Rabbis should be careful because we could get into serious fights. Anyway, this is the general background of Bet Shammai Bet Hillel. And here's a story. There are 3 stories about people who sought conversion to Judaism and were rejected by Shammai and accepted by Hillel. Each one of them has a different story. The first one comes to Shammai and he says, how many Torahs do you have? And Shammai says, we have 2, the oral one and the written one. And the one says, Shebichtav ani ma'amincha, shebe'al peh ani ma'amincha. I will trust you on the written law, but I don't trust you regarding the oral law. Now, this story, even though the rabbis tell it about a non-Jew, it reflects also the conflicts that they had with their own people, with Jews. Because many Jews in rabbinic times, I'm talking from the first century before the Common Era, till the writing of the Mishnah, many Jews had these kind of questions, asking the rabbis, where did you get this tradition from? If the rabbis introduced a new halacha, they said, how do you know it's true? And they said, we have the oral law to show me, where is it written? So there was always this kind of contention. So in any case, this candidate for conversion tells Shammai, I will only accept the written law. So obviously he already knows something. It's not someone who comes with a blank table. He knows what he wants. He spoke with Jews. He realized there are two sects. Some people believe in the oral and written law. Some people believe only in the written law. But he wants to do it through Shammai. So when Shammai heard that, he rebuked him and he kicked him out. He says, I don't have time for you. If you don't want to receive what I have, goodbye. And the equivalent to what we have today is, people come for conversion, and if they come to what is considered an Orthodox Bedin, and the Orthodox Bedin, before they even start, they say, they would put a list of rules, and when a person says, I can't do all that, they say goodbye, then you're not welcome. The original way to do conversion, which is written in the Gemara, legislated by Maimonides, is this: ger sheba להתגייר, מודיעין אותו מקצת מצוות קלות ומקצת מצוות חמורות. ואם קיבל, מקבלים אותו מיד. Meaning, the person comes, says, I want to convert. We tell him, being a Jew means that you have to keep Shabbat, you have to keep kosher, and then we choose a couple of concepts to tell him it's not that easy. Then there's another element. We tell him, Israel b'zman hazeh devuyim schofim u'metorafim. They drift from side to side. They are always in trouble. There's always anti-Semitism, which today, Baruch Hashem, it's not that bad. It's much, much better than any time in our history. But in any case, after this, if the person says, it's okay, I'm willing to do that, mekabelim oto miyad, you do the gerut on the spot. The original Orthodox conversion is nothing like it is today. A person comes and says, I want to convert. You sit with him for about an hour, maybe half an hour. You have a conversation. You see that he's determined, she's determined. Right away, conversion is performed. And then let them go and start learning the mitzvot. Just like a kid who was born into Judaism doesn't get everything at once. It's a gradual process. So in any case, Shammai wanted from the beginning full commitment. He kicks him out. Balifnei Hillel giro. He came to Hillel. Hillel didn't ask him questions. He says, okay, let's first do the conversion and then we'll talk. So he set him down and he starts teaching him the Aleph Bet. He says, this is Aleph, this is Bet, this is Gimel, this is Dalet. Very good. Lemachar hafachlo. On the following day, he switched the order. He shows him the Aleph and he says, this is Dalet. The Bet calls it Gimel, and so on. The man says, what's going on? You're confusing me. You're giving me the wrong names. He says, how do you know that those are the right names? He said, eventually, no matter what, when you look at the text, you look at the language, you need someone to interpret it for you. One of the most popular softwares today to learn new languages is called the Rosetta Stone. Yeah. And it's named after the famous Rosetta Stone that helped scholars decipher the hieroglyphs. For many, many years, hieroglyphs were available, but nobody was able to decipher them because it's a self-contained system. It's a series of signs. Until the French found the stone, Rosetta, and Champollion was the scholar who was able to compare, because it was written in Greek, I think in Coptic, Greek, and hieroglyphs, so he was able to compare and even that took him many, many years. So Hillel tells the man, your willingness to learn is beautiful, but you have to accept that there is a tradition that you receive from the previous generation. So that's Hillel's approach. It's unlike Shammai, which is all or nothing, right? And right now you have to decide. Hillel is gradual. He says, okay, let's first you have the will. Let's bring you in and let's go through the process. Shuv Maaseh ben Uchri Echad. Then there's another story. שהיה עובר אחורי בית הכנסת ושמע כל סופר שהיה אומר ואלה הבגדים אשר יעשו חושן ואפוד. So again, it's hard to say whether this story is true as being delivered or was embellished, because this man heard a verse, he heard someone reading, and he liked the pasuk, he liked the text. What was the verse about? It says, those are the garments of the Kohen. There he's going to have a chest plate, a breastplate made of gold and precious stones, and like beautiful garments. And he asked, who's going to wear those things? They tell him the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. So either maybe he heard it from someone who was reading and translating it, because he used to do that. So he liked the idea of having those special garments. So he said, let me go and convert in order to become high priest. So he goes to Shammai and he says, I would like to pursue conversion in order to become a high priest. In this case, Shammai doesn't even talk to him. Shammai was like we saw about Abba Hilkiah, the previous class. Shammai was also a working man. He was a bricklayer, was in construction. So he's laying bricks, and this guy is bothering him. He has the stick, the yardstick, and he pushes him with the yard. It doesn't even go away, pushing him away from him. You're bothering me, and just leave me alone. This is ridiculous. He comes to Hillel. What does Hillel do? First thing, Giro. First thing, he converts him. He says, okay, that's good. Let's do it. Meaning you're interested that we can work with that. And then he says, okay, but you want to be the high priest, right? You need to know there's a manual that you have to learn. Here's the manual, it's called the Torah. Read through it. So he starts reading, and with the teacher, or with Hillel, then he reaches the pasuk in Bamidbar that says that a foreigner who comes close to the temple will be put to death. Just like I spoke yesterday about Nadav Avihu crossing boundaries. So he reads this verse, he says, who's this pasuk about? It's the same question, by the way. You realize, when he hears the verse about the garments, it says, who is the topic, who is the subject of that verse? When he hears that the foreigner who breaches the boundaries will be put to death, who is the subject of that? It's the same concept. Meaning he's exploring. He wants to know how the halachot apply to people. Amar lo afilu al David melech Israel. It says this applies to everyone, including the king. So this man says, if the king is going to be punished in that manner, even though he's part of Am Yisrael, that is like a naturally born Jew, even more so me. How can I do that? It says Ger Akal sheba b'maklo v'tarmilo al achad kama v'chama. He says, I'm just a visitor. I'm just of course, in the next generation, if his daughter marries a Kohen, he might have a grandson who's a Kohen Gadol. It's not impossible. Judaism is open for everyone. So this man went to Shammai and he says, really, do you think I'm fit to be a Kohen Gadol? The Torah says, V'azar karev yumad. Maybe he's being a little, what's that, chutzpahdik? Yeah, like he wanted to show Shammai that, because of you, I might have lost the merit of being Jewish. He said, you should have told me that I cannot be a Kohen, but you would have brought me in like Hillel. And he goes to Hillel and he says, because of your humbleness and acceptance, you'll be blessed that you brought me closer to Judaism. And finally, this is, I think, the most famous story. The man who comes to Shammai and says, I'm most probably it happened in Manhattan because people don't have time. So he just gets off the train in Penn Station. He says, "He'll help you. You're a rabbi? Yes. Listen, I have 1 minute. I need to run, but I want to become Jewish. You have 1 minute to teach me, right? And I have a meeting right now." So this is the idea. He comes. He says, "Gayreni al menat she'elmad kol haTorah kula al regel ahad." He says, I can give you more than the time that one can stand on 1 foot. So until today, this is a phrase in Hebrew, on 1 foot, like on the run, without much investment. So, what do you think Shammai does to him? The yardstick. Goodbye, kick him out. Just think about also of all the teachers, we had either us or our children, people that you have the two main categories of teachers are those who always see a confrontation with the student. The student is there only to tease them and to annoy them and to make their life more difficult. And if you're not fully committed and want to learn, goodbye, I'm not interested. The other teacher always look for the point of where is it that I reach that child or that student, what is it that he or she are really open for, and get them in. And Hillel is like this master teacher. Yes, Robert?
Shammai and Hillel are not the only two rabbis in Israel.
At the time?
Yeah, there's other people. So what's the chances of someone...
Right.
Are these not real stories?
So I said, we don't know if were real stories, but on the other hand, the probability of those people coming to Shammai and Hillel is that there was a movement of hundreds, maybe tens of thousands of people who were seeking conversion at that time, to the extent that scholars say that at around the time of the destruction of the temple, this is the 1st century, the percentage of Jews in the population of the known world was somewhere between 2 to 10%. Amazing development that probably happened because Greeks and Romans didn't have the same ideology of Judaism, where you have redemption and you have movement in time. So people really were looking into it. We have, from that period, like I said, tens of, if not hundreds of thousands of people.
So the probability of these 3 or 4 people meeting both of them isn't...
It's not that remote, right? But then again, it could be the message. He comes to Hillel. Hillel can right away says, "Okay, you want to be Jewish? Yes. You're committed? Yes. Okay, let's do the conversion. Now, okay, stand on 1 foot. Well, first you have to do that. That time you have to give. He stands on 1 foot. Amar lo, ma shesanui alecha, lo ta'aseh lachaverecha. What you hate, don't do unto others." And that is a paraphrase on Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your brother, love your friend as you love yourself. Now, why did he say love your brothers as you love yourself? Because it's more difficult. Because this is the positive. Go do actively something for others. But he says, okay, let's start with don't do unto others what you don't want to be done unto you. And that is really a core message of Judaism. But it didn't stop there. He says, Zoi kol haTorah kula. That's the whole Torah. Ve'ash'ar, and originally it's in Aramaic, idach perusha uzil gemor. Hash'ar perush ulech lemad. All the rest is commentary, which you have to learn. And that is one of the, I think, most striking insights that we have in the whole Talmud. And that is in rabbinic literature. What Hillel says is this: what is the purpose of the Torah? Where is the Torah directed? It's not towards God. It's towards humans. There are two ideologies. Some people think that the purpose of the Torah and the mitzvot and spirituality, religiosity is all to serve God. We want God to be happy. For whatever reason, God will be content, God will be perfect if we do the right thing. Hillel says, no, it's not about that. It's about making the world perfect, making humans feel good and living good and all that. How do you do that? Through the Torah. So every mitzvah is just a tool to make the world a better place. Even mitzvot that we think are purely between us and God are meant for that. So Shabbat is a good example because people tend to think that Shabbat is for God, but it's easy to see how Shabbat helps us. We rest, our animal, our workers rest, etc. But even mitzvot like kashrut, People usually think that eating kosher is some kind of a arbitrary system that God imposed on us to make our life difficult. So it's true when you have to eat kosher food coming from certain places on the plane, then you feel it's a burden, and you'd rather have water and crackers. But in general, kashrut is something that changes our life, and that is it allows us to delay gratification. So one of the main things that kashrut allows us to do is to delay gratification and to know that we're not going to eat everything. We restrict ourselves. The ability to restrain yourself allows you to develop in the future. It has been proven, the famous marshmallow test, that kids who were able to delay gratification for 5 minutes grew up to be more successful adults. So even that, we could do that with each and every mitzvah, but this is what Hillel tells him. You have to learn. You have to constantly. Judaism is a journey of constant learning. Eventually, the Gemara says it happened that those three people met together in a pub. I don't know, maybe Seudah Shelishit. They're singing together, and they say, "Amru kapdanuto shel Shammai biksha letordenu min haolam anvetanuto shel Hillel ki raftanuto hat kanfei hashchina." They said because of Shammai is so pedantic, we would have lost the ability to become Jewish, but because of Hillel's flexible and accepting approach, we became Jews, and we are under the wings of divine providence. And that's why the rabbis concluded, "Le'olam ya'adam anvatan kila." We have to learn from the character traits of Hillel. Baruch Adonai, Amen.
Amen.